Yes, yesterday was your colloquium.
Oh yeah, I got excited because she mentioned Proxima B, and then I was like, okay, I gotta
Yeah,
say something.
your old home. I'm setting up the stage for the, a machine which you will use very often to generate integrals other than looking them up in Mathematica. Stephen Wolfram, he showed up at Oxford. I was a postdoc at Oxford in high energy physics, and one day a little nerd shows up, a kid from high school called Ethan, which was sent to us by his math teacher because he felt this kid is too smart to be in Eton. So the kid shows up and he has a manuscript, and it's his book on special relativity. Pauli did the same trick as a wunderkid. And so he leaves Eton without ever graduating. He's 16 or something. He becomes a student at Oxford. Then, he was too smart, so they kicked him out without finishing Oxford. He went to Caltech to get his PhD. And those people screwed up because they gave him a PhD. So unlike Dyson, he actually has a PhD. What does it have to do with this thing? He's a child with infinite memory, can remember everything. And he found it totally disgusting that there is Gradshteyn and Ryzhik. That's a book of these integrals I'm teaching you how to do. Like 600 pages listed, 10, 20 integrals per page. That's disgusting. So he decided to write a computer program because he was a very good programmer and computers were coming in, which would just tell you what the integral is. And indeed, Mathematica does it. Now, please don't look up these things in Mathematica. Do them because it's very important to understand how they evaluate it. But the whole reason why Mathematica was originally created was so we didn't have to look at the stupid integrals in Gradshteyn and Ryzhik and other tabulations of integrals.
He has pretty
Yeah.
interesting theories on the universe.
He's a total pain in, as happens with prodigies. Now, he's so much smarter than me that I do not pass judgment. I don't pass judgment to people who understand things better than I do. But he has a way of irritating everybody because he didn't do well in academia in the sense that he got into the fight about ownership of his first program, list integrals and do Feynman integrals. And the result of this is even, Feynman and Gell-Mann could not save him to Nobelists at Caltech. He left in a half, but with a PhD, and was hired by Institute for Advanced Study and so on. But basically, he tends to offend everybody in academia by telling them they're stupid. So he decided, okay, I will make money on Mathematica, and then I will be independent of academia and the boring professors and their judgments. So that's what he did. So that's what he is now. And he has done two things which make sense, but the first thing is me and my friend Mitchell Feigenbaum, we discretize time. We realized that looking at steps in discrete time gives very interesting insights in chaos and turbulence. And he said, well, yeah, you discretize time. Why don't I discretize time and space? That's called cellular automata. And he did some important work on cellular automata, but not giving credit to everybody sufficiently often, so other people are annoyed at him like hell. That's the first. So then, all my colleagues piled up on him for not giving credit to people who prove theorems and being general pain. Now he's paying the second time around because he says, well, there is a theory of nature which is much simpler, but it's done in terms of graphs rather than the way we tend to think of space and time as continuum. He is very proud, and he might be right, he might be wrong, I do not know, but I'm too lazy to help him work on it, but he's very brilliant. Time will tell whether this works or doesn't work. But again, he's annoying everybody by not giving credit to the larger community. Who am I to judge?
Professor, can I just follow up on your comment? Do you say he went to Oxford and then he moved to Caltech? Do you think it was right to kind of give him? Do you think in general it's right to give those Predrag kids a skip ahead or an early PhD instead of just
Absolutely. Most of the things that we do, 14-year-old Hamilton could do, etc. Just, humans take longer process of learning. Most of our learning is wasted time. I think people who do this fast, they should do this at age 11 if they can do it. I have nothing against. And, we confer degrees to bring people in our particular medieval society. And PhD is one of those rituals. And, it's necessary for most people because we have to believe that research people can write and explain what they're doing. And they can think original thoughts or incrementally original thoughts. So that's what PhDs do. Now, there's no reason why Freeman Dyson or Stephen Wolfram should have any of those degrees. It's obvious they're smart and they're thinking. What's amazing about these people, they work all the time. Same true was Richard Feynman. It looked very effortless when he wooed his audiences by beautiful lectures. He worked 20 hours a day to make it look simple. So, absolutely. I think degrees should be irrelevant for some very good people. They're important to certify, members of. Now, the rest of the thing performs essential functions because most physics professors are not Feynman or Lev Davidovich Landau. But without them, we don't have a culture of critical thinking. They're extremely important as a community which trains new members of community in a critical thinking, and that's more important than ever. Living in ridiculous times that we do. It's very important to train people like that. So I think it's all okay. But it's kind of amusing because, it's medieval guild system. You have masters and you have apprentices and they learn. It has to be done personally because you can't get it from the books, especially as experimentalists, you have to be there. And then you have to worry about, why don't we let women do it? Why don't we let, people of other backgrounds and races do it? And that's just inertia of medieval guilds. There's nothing intrinsic about Ruth Bader Ginsburg not being a lawyer because she's a woman. Yeah. But so lots of baggage comes with it, but I'm part of it and I defend this reactionary system. Yes.
So I wanted to say, first of all, that I would like to hear more about your interaction with Stephen because I worked with him and actually had a chance to speak with him several times over the summer. And he did mention you a couple of times. And second of all, do you think that the PhD system is broken in the sense that students spend a lot of time doing some kind of research, maybe 4, 5, 6 years? Would you think it would be more beneficial if you can shorten that time?
It's not broke. I'm sorry. I'm total black reaction, and I cannot afford to be Stephen Wolfram because I'm not as smart as Stephen. But I'm his friend and older friend and all that stuff. But I just recognize. No, the system is necessary, and we have to protect students from abuse. There could be personal abuse because people in science are not selected for having been holding hands in the kindergartens, but they're selected for very exceptional skills, just like runners and musicians. It has nothing to do with their mental development, maturity, humanity, anything else. So we select them for that way, and that has risk. They can be very bad mentors, or they can be abusive, etc. So as a system, we have to be always watching to protect our next generation from that possible abuse. Now, if you're going to do low temperature experiments in our basement, 6-8 years might be what it takes, because it's really, really delicate and dangerous to screw up. I mean, you have to do it. For theorists, I would like to put them out in 4 years. I don't see any reason why the theorists should stay there forever, unless they are part of some, very large project like LIGO or something, where the time scale of what they have to do is, beyond PhD time scale. So we have to stretch their time just to be able to get the bid they have to do. So, I think this is not a bad system, but it needs continuous watchfulness, improvement, fight. The students have to stand up for their rights, the postdocs, assistant professors, everybody has to fight a good fight, because, I might be unaware of some injustice being done to somebody just because I'm not there, I'm not aware of it. So it has to be done.
I mean, basically, what I was going to say is, even if you finish your PhD early, you're likely going to have to do, postdocs after. You might as well extend your PhD in some cases if it's beneficial.
No, I totally disagree with you on that, because, we train you, if this science is done right, a set of hard sciences and some parts of engineering, for example, very theoretical computer science, we don't train you to solve the problem. We don't even know what the problem is in 6 years from now. We have no idea, right? We train you to teach a problem. And we have to train you by teaching you how to solve several problems, not just one problem. Not believe that for a PhD is science. It's just a little part of science always. We have to kick you out of here, because if you're here for 4 years, you get inbred in a certain way of thinking, which is a feature of a particular group of people that you're working with. You have to be kicked out, just like you have to leave your home, and go to a different city to study, a different country. You have to kick you out so you can swim in a totally different context. And a good PhD is always like that. You do your PhD in superstrings, but your postdoc is in neuroscience. Now, what they have in common is that they are very difficult problems of great complexity. Now, the details are different, but neuroscientists want to have this PhD working because such a person brings sets of tools which are developed for complex problems. So, and you should do postdocs, and they're wonderful if you're lucky. You have to understand that being a graduate student and being a postdoc are the happiest years of your life. You're free. You nominally do something that some professor wants you to do, but you think about all kinds of things that you want to think about and solve problems. And once you're assistant professor, unfortunately in the United States, in a system that's governed by grabbing money for short-term goals, it becomes extremely tough to survive in academia from then on for irrelevant reasons. How do you get money? But everybody who is evaluates you hopefully on your intellect, on your hard work, and not on your skills of cozying up to the program officers. So I think postdocs are good. They're really good. What's not good is what comes afterward. And for lots of people, lots of youth is spent in a bad education. People could have learned stuff faster. But, it's not obvious. I mean, in some systems, they only teach you already in high school. They teach you 3 things. So that's a traditional system, let's say in Europe. So by the time you go to do PhD in England, you do it in 3 years and you do one thing very narrowly. So it's too narrow an education. So, but I really think you should cherish your graduate years and your PhD years because you're being supported for not doing any honest work. We're investing, everybody, society is investing you because we hope that eventually you'll do something. And we realize that it cannot be done unless you're trained to solve problems that nobody else can solve. So anyway, you're talking to Black Reaction and defending the system.
I think what you said touched on one of my concerns about PhDs in general, which I guess is alleviated by the fact that you go on to do postdocs and you'll meet with other people. But it's just that I sometimes get the impression that you learn more what your advisor does rather than physics in general. Like I feel like you're being
absolutely, but
that's
the essence of apprenticeship. You go and apprentice with a guy who makes silver coffee pots. So you learn how to bang this thing until you're a master, and everybody says this is a beautiful silver pot. Then you leave and you learn how to build cars. This stage of life is just to prove that you can learn and you can think originally. 2 steps. The master's degrees you can learn and communicate. PhDs you can learn and you can contribute by your own, free thinking, which young people are so amazingly good at. But you just learn some random subject that some advisor is doing. I totally agree, but there's nothing wrong with that. You just learn how to do a thing well. Doesn't matter what thing.
What do you think about, the creativity of a person? And as you get older, do you think people lose creative thinking and become ingrained? Meaning, I know a lot of physicists had their breakthrough when they were very young.
I think it's still true, especially in, it depends on which branch of science you're in. So if you're a medical doctor or some kind of biologist, the empirical wisdom is incredibly important. It's accumulated over a whole lifetime. And you trust a person who is older, but not gaga yet. Gaga, I think we should avoid. But now in some branches of mathematics and theoretical physics, it's very helpful not to know too much when you start out, but being passionately engaged. Lots of things are done very early in those fields. And those people who have done stuff early, most of them, don't invent. But if you invent something, I have a friend who was French friend who was, a nephew of a great French philosopher. So he went with him to lecture. So he goes to a lecture. They listen to a philosophe saying blah, blah, blah. They come out. The young man is incensed. He said, but there was only one idea in the whole talk. And the old philosopher says, une idée, c'est déjà quelque chose. Says, one idea, that's already something. So in physics, if you have 1 or 2 ideas compared to, hundreds of thousands of your people who are working today, because it's huge, that's a great pleasure, but you don't even have to do that. You just have to, do good work in applying the knowledge, incrementing it as training the people. It's fine.
What do you think
it doesn't matter. Later on, maybe your ideas are not. Stephen Wolfram, he's 60. He's not a wunderkid anymore. This is an old guy. But he has an idea and, he's very passionate about it and maybe it'll work out. So
he still thinks and acts like a kid, if I may say, which is quite remarkable. You see the way he thinks.
Sort of, yeah. Sort of. But he is very adult in many ways.
Yeah. Let me ask you, what do you think about, working on something that is tangible or something that might have applications or something that you can measure as opposed to I don't know, theoretical physics or more mathematical models that might not have immediate application and cannot be tested?
This is obviously a loaded question. I think you should just think freely and, go where your intuition and your luck takes you. And if you have to make money to feed your family, you'll always be able to do this with this training. So never worry about being unemployed because you haven't followed your advisor's sessions or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, in my opinion, you should take all the risks. And the worst thing that can happen to you is that you will have a happy life doing something that's not academia, but, that might be a blessing and not. So you should be fearless. Don't worry. There's no reason to worry for such a lucky, privileged group of few people who can think critically in a society where that's essential skill. Society cannot persist without it, while we are training lots of people not to be able to think. So you're just irreplaceable. Face it. You will be needed no matter what.
The more I go through my academia and my thought process in the past several years has changed. I wouldn't change quite dramatically. Just the way I see any everyday problems. I know people have come to me, for example, my friends, my roommate, and told me like, Bao, what should I do with that? Because I just assess and think about everyday problem differently than other people. But I'm not sure if that's a byproduct of physics, solving problem, or just...
A good training is, first of all, the world is, rich in infinitely many problems of things we just accept, but we haven't thought through. So, understanding what a little droplet does on a piece of glass can turn out to be a PhD. There's so many things to think about, and as a physicist, you should not trust anybody. You should just, if you find something fascinating, start from the scratch and work on it. And again, nobody can tell, if you're good for anything, we should be uncovering things unknown, ahead of us. So nobody can tell you what they are. You're supposed to wander into them. And why can we do it? We have a record of few thousand years of doing it. Celestial mechanics came from priests, the most corrupt caste of people, trying to con ordinary people and giving them money, right? So predicting eclipses, etc. But it's incredibly valuable from Babylonian times, and totally useless. Kepler was hard to do. Whatever these astrological tables for some crazy emperor of Holy Roman Empire in Prague. So he did this on the side, what the hell is, anybody can do astrological tables. I have all kinds of, friends who do them. And then he did what he wanted to do. So he got his money doing this. So as a scientist, that's what you do. You apply for some grants. They give you money to look at 3 atoms in laser beams because everybody's doing that, so it's very interesting. And in a corner of that room, you have a thing which has, a chicken heart in it or something, which you think that's really interesting problem, but I can't get money for it because nobody even understands it. So that's what you do. You do it in parallel tracks. You do stuff that you think really interesting, and you do other stuff which your community wants to get done. It's okay.
What you said about the corrupt priests reminds me of a quote. I think it's by Isaac Asimov, but maybe citation needed. It's like, science. The problem is that science acquires knowledge faster than society acquires wisdom. And I feel like that is so true today. It was true,
you couldn't live in a better time for that wisdom. When you have the morons take over, that's really something. So yes, and we are human. I mean, the basic thing is that even individually, we are not able to separate our abstract thinking from our cultural baggage.
I would
So
hope that
some great physicists were very active eugenists and racists,
I
shortly
would
in
hope
the
that
50s.
I would be able to contribute to both as a scientist.
Yeah, you have to be a human being. I mean, the two things go together. As a human, you have to do them both. There is no guarantee that your human wisdom will be, use your scientific critical thinking as a way of honing your human wisdom. But human wisdom is much more complex. In science, we take problems we can do. That's a small subset of problems. So I like to do turbulence, which is Navier-Stokes, well defined, but cardiac dynamics is much harder, much more important in some sense. But I can't do it; it's too hard. So that's what we do as scientists or mathematicians or biologists. But somebody has to do social science, psychology,
I don't want
economics.
to.
All of those things are very important.
I don't want to go on a too long of a rant, but like one of the things that I noticed, this is sort of a personal opinion here, but the attitude among physicists and some mathematicians toward philosophy, which I feel like is unwarranted because I think that philosophy is really associated with wisdom and is associated with the kind of sort of reflection on knowledge that you really need to be a better scientist and a better human being. And I think that people don't give philosophy credit because as soon as a philosophical problem becomes solvable or they realize it's solvable, it becomes science. It is a matter of definition or semantics.
Yeah. Do you know any philosophers personally?
Personally?
Yeah.
I mean, at Princeton, Professor Halverson did his PhD thesis on extending Bell's inequality to relativity, special relativity, the quantum field theory.
Yeah.
And so, but he's a pretty strong advocate for the role of at least having a sort of a philosophical background when approaching physics.
Because we can go back to Stephen Wolfram. So his mother is a philosopher.
I know, yeah, he told me the story.
So he grew up hating philosophy because what have these people done in 3,000 years? What have they done?
They asked all
so
the
you
questions
came into
which gave
physics and
birth to
mathematics.
all of science and mathematics. That's what they did.
Well, you can discuss it with Stephen Wolfram, but basically he's influenced by philosophy by rejecting it, because it's his mother's job. I don't know about philosophy as academic discipline, but
that's probably different.
One has to think about larger problems than the few problems that we have no choice as humans. We have to deal with all that other stuff, and there our wisdom is only partially supported by our critical thinking training in physics or in mathematics or engineering or whatever it is. Okay, that was a long rant for everybody. Bye. Bye.